realizing time is running out, that moment where you question everything and you start to think, what the hell have I actually done with my life? Did I fulfill my dreams? Did I do what I wanted to do? Could I have done things better? What's going to happen in the future if I'm not working? And who's going to pay the bills? And I should have done more. Maybe I should have started up that side hustle or that internet business. Then I could have made some passive income and had a little bit of security there for my children. And what about that pension plan? That's not looking too good at the moment. And you're just sitting there and you're thinking all of this stuff going through your head, and you're thinking about your life. It happens to some people when they get to 30, they start to think about, look, I'm getting old now. Like, what am I going to do? What have I done with my life? I'm getting too old now to do this other course. I better get a move on. But mostly, I'm speaking to men that are usually get after the age of 40, when they're coming up to that age of 50 and afterwards, is when most people do start to question themselves. And it can be counterproductive because it can slow you down and it can overwhelm you and put you in a really unresourceful state. So I know life has problems, but my approach here is to get you to the point where you have a more relaxed outlook on life and still be fully resourceful in that moment. Have all your energy, and it's all that energy that you're putting into worrying and all of those negative pictures that you're making in your mind about the future. It's to turn that around and channel that energy, even though you have problems, that you can channel all of that time that you're wasting worrying and thinking about the worst case scenario, to put all of that energy and that visualization, whatever you're doing in that moment. Imagine if you put that into a positive approach. And I'm not going to teach you any techniques on this particular podcast. I'm just going to give you a concept and a principle to live by and a relaxed approach. This relaxed approach is going to add way more value to your life because you're not going to be actively fighting every day to stabilize your mental health. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing in any way, because I did a lot of that stuff and it did help me, and I probably wouldn't be here without it. But I'm going to shift your focus here for a moment, and I want you to try this approach. I've got 2 podcasts done already that have a little bit of this kind of stuff in it. They're something that you should listen to in the background when you're walking or when you're driving or when you're doing something, where you're just pottering around. And it's going to give you a different way of looking at life. And the idea of this is to just have a general, just men's talk, and just talk about stuff that's going on in people's life and help you to get to the realization that you don't have to do too much work to stay stable in this massive ocean of uncertainty and torment and stress. Life just seems to be wanting to fight you all the time, and it seems to be set up in a way that it's set up to make you fail and to make you worry, because people are worried about not being able to support their family in the future, because it seems impossible to even go to work and do your job, and then you have to think you're going to have to start up a side hustle or something to make some more passive income, and your life insurance, all that kind of stuff. I know what men are going through. I speak to a lot of men, and the idea of this is to help you to not get caught up in that. And if you are caught up in it, just follow me for a while. Listen to what I've got to say in the background. Give me some feedback if what you want to hear. Tell me if you want these podcasts to be longer, if you want me to go into more depth, if you want me to make them shorter. I don't want to make them too short where they lose their value, because that's what can happen. There's reasons why people are stuck in a negative feeling, and I understand that what's going on in that part of their mind when they're trying to use quick, fast techniques to help themselves, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. So I understand a lot of what's happening. If somebody talks to me and say, here's look this is what's happening in my life, I just have to listen to them for a while and listen to see what their story is. And I can pretty much tell them, I can pretty much tell myself what's causing them to stay stuck there. Okay? So if you can understand this, and you can understand the principles behind what I do, you can apply that thinking to your life, and you can prevent yourself from getting into a bad mood, so you don't have to dig yourself out of it. Every negative thought has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's like a story. If there's a start to it, it's usually, sometimes it's a good start, sometimes it's a bad start. Whatever way that story ends is going to define what your quality of life is. And if you just slow down and listen to yourself when you're talking, it's not easy to do because usually when you're in that state, it's just on autopilot. And someone will say, I don't know, I just feel shit. But if I start to question them and ask them questions like, what are you saying to yourself? What are you thinking about? Usually they'll tell me their story. And that story is probably true. I'm not saying that it's not true. But whether it's true or not, the fact that you're telling yourself that story and putting a bad ending on it is what's going to define your quality of life. If I can help you to get out of that mindset, you're going to have a much better experience in your body. You can still have the challenges outside. But all you're learning to do with me is you're learning to just be in the moment without trying to do anything, because even reading books about being in the moment means that you have to go inside and think about being in the moment. You're in your head talking about being present when you already are present. You don't have to try and be present, you are. So I want to get you to the point where you're either going to change your story on purpose, knowing that it's probably not going to be a true ending that you're putting on it, but your mind doesn't care if it's true or not, because you're telling yourself stories about the future that are probably not true. You don't have all the evidence that they're true. You have assumptions, and you probably have really good probabilities to say, yeah, well, look, I don't have any money in my account and I'm a month behind on my mortgage and I can't see how I'm going to get out of that because I don't have any other income coming in. And inevitably that's going to catch up with me because I've got this holiday coming up and I have to go to a wedding and you're telling me it's going to be all right. I'm like, whoa. I'm not trying to tell you anything about what's happening outside of you. I don't know. I could give you advice on that, but here's the thing. Before I would give you advice on it, I'd have to be in a good place. I'd have to be in a good mood and I'd have to be able to see things clearly. And you can see things clearer when you're in a good mood and when you're not caught up in the problem. And I'm not caught up in your problem. So I'd probably be the best person to ask for advice because I can see things clearly. But if you go to someone else that has the same problem, they're usually not going to be helpful as they could be because they're in a low mood, they're in fear, they're stressed, and good decisions and good advice don't hang out in low moods. So all the advice that someone has in their brain usually hangs out in a part of their mind that's involved in feeling better. If someone's in a low mood, all you're going to get when you ask someone questions when they're in a low mood is you're going to get negative answers in most cases, They can give you good advice even if they're in a low mood, but it's not going to be as helpful as them being in a better mood, okay? Now, my goal here is to get you to be able to be in a better mood and then make your own decisions about what's important for you. Because what's important for you might not be as important for me. Depends what mood I'm in. So I'm going to show you how to stay in a positive mood realistically. Now, not be that annoying person that's always in a positive mood and annoying everybody, but to be able to calibrate to the moment, to be able to adapt to the circumstances. And if one of your kids or your family's feeling down, we don't want you walking in there being happy, skippy, hoppy and jumpy because they'll just want to punch your lights out. There's nothing worse when you're feeling low and someone's in a really positive mood around you. You just want to knock them out sometimes. That's just the way a lot of people feel. It can be very annoying and counterproductive. So it's to be able to be in the moment, be fully aware of what's going on in front of you and be present and available in that moment without judgment and tend to what's happening in front of you without having any negative story in your head about how it ends, because nobody knows how it ends. We don't know. But here's what I can tell you. If you're in a better mood, you're going to make better decisions and that's going to create a different ending. Okay? And that's just the way life works. Whatever mood you're in is going to influence your decisions and your actions. And you're probably going to make better decisions and react better if you're in a better mood. So whatever story that you have in your head, I just want this moment, just in this video, I just want you to be aware that every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you want to practice this, it's very hard to do it on yourself. But when someone's telling you their problem or talking about their problem, just ask yourself about the start of the story. Listen for the words that they're using. And there'll be a middle of the story. And this could be the story about what's happening to them. Could be a story about what happened in work. Could be about their life. Or they're going to tell you about how they feel. and what happened to me and why I feel this way and how it happens and what time it happens. You know, they're going to tell you these things. And if you listen and ask yourself the question, what's the beginning of this story? Did it start off good? Maybe it did. The middle of the story started to feel like it went downhill after a while. And the end of the story was pretty shit. And if you have a bad ending to the story that you tell yourself or that you're telling about your life, it's going to create bad feelings because your body's eavesdropping on your mind. It's listening. And it's trying to find out what's going on here. And if that story has a bad ending, that means it has a bad meaning. And when you create a bad meaning, the meaning creates the feeling, and you're going to have a bad feeling in your body. And lots of people are going around with a bad ending to all the stories that they tell about their life. And it's not very helpful if you want to move forward and take on your tasks and your challenges. There's lots of techniques that you can do to get you to change your mood like that. But for me, what happened to me was I started to realize that when I was in the mood, nothing worked. None of the techniques worked. So I figured out a lot of stuff along the way because I was working with other people. I started to learn some real deep advanced stuff. And then I started to figure out, hang on, I can see there's something happening here. And so I just got these moments of clarity when I was kind of thinking about myself, because I wanted to be the guy that was talking the talk and walking the walk. I wanted to be the person that I wanted to be was, I wanted to be that person that didn't have to go on a holiday to be on a vacation. You know, I wanted to be able to be on a holiday at home. And, you know, feel like I'm on a holiday, like I'm like the Americans come here and they have a great time. They think it's a great place. What's the story that they have about Ireland? I want to be able to go on a holiday and still be on a vacation in my mind, but not wait to go on a holiday to have that vacation. You know, it's a mindset. It's a story. And if you ask me what my story is about life, it's going to be different than what you're going to hear most people, but my quality of life is better. I make better decisions and people around me feel better, and I never really get into conflict with anybody unless I'm trying to influence somebody. I'm always thinking about how can I be the example? How can I just show people how to change? In order for me to help somebody to feel better, guess who has to go there first? It's me. I have to go there first. And if I'm there, it's easier for me to lead somebody and get them there. You know, so I'm going to try and share with you an overall concept, and even everything that I've said up to this point still counts. I want you to consider it. You don't have to write it down. You don't have to think about it too much. You just have to kind of ponder on it and go, that made sense. That feels like exactly what I'm doing. There is some kind of truth to that. And you know what? I'm going to start thinking about that. And you might catch yourself from moment to moment going, that story that I'm telling myself, it has a really shit end, and I think I'm going to change the ending on it. So I'm going to try and influence you. Not persuade you. I'm going to try and influence you to start to change the ending of your story, and you're going to want to fight it because you believe your story is true. And I'm not saying that it's not. It just depends who you ask. It can be challenged, and the truth is not fixed. The truth is open to interpretation and has an infinite way of being interpreted. What's true for you and what's bad for you might be good for somebody else that has less than you. And it's being able to put it into that box and put value on it on purpose, even though it might be shit. That if you can change how you think about something and you can change how you feel, now you can empty the shit out of the box and clean it. You know, there's something you can do when you're in a better state of mind. You can make better decisions. So my job is to get you to consider, can I just make up this other story about a better ending to my life? Like, you know, instead of imagining myself with no money, what would it be like if I told myself I'm going to be fine? And even if the reality is that you're not, the space between now and then is going to be what matters, because that's the longest part. So let's say the end of your life is here, or the end of the situation where you feel like something's going to go wrong or right. If you're feeling good all the way along here, that's the part that matters. And then when you practice feeling good all the way along here, by the time you get here, even if this thing goes wrong, you're going to be in a much better position to be able to fix it, because you're going to practice being in a better mood. But if you practice being in a fearful mood all the way along and it goes wrong, then you're going to be debilitated. You're not going to be any use to anybody. But if you're in a better mood, now you're the guy that people will go to say, look, shit's gone downhill. What are we going to do? You'll be like, don't worry about it. I'm at to be practicing for the past few months or few years, feeling good. And guess what I'm good at? Feeling good. I'm the best man to call because I'm going to be in a much more resourceful state. The end of the story is only a tool that you're using to store up feelings. Now you're here. The end of the story is here. And whatever you say to whatever you say to yourself here is going to change how you feel. Whether we know what way it's going to end or not, but none of us do. So I'm going to try and influence you. As I said, not persuade you. I'm going to say it in so many different ways that maybe you'll consider it and go, you know what? I'm going to try and do that thing. I'm going to try and change my story just for the heck of it. And a lot of people will probably come up to you and say, if you said it out loud, they'll probably say, that's bullshit, that story that you're telling yourself. And you can say, you can change it, put it back to the negative one, or you can go, okay, thanks for sharing that with me, I know, but I feel better. And I'm going to practice feeling better now so that when I do have to make a decision, whether it's good or bad, I'm going to be in a much better place, you know? So where does your story start? What does it mean? Who decided what it means? And who told you? How do you know that's what it means? Is it true, or is it just a story that you're telling yourself? You could ask yourself all of these questions, but here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Either stop telling the story, and if there's no story, there's no meaning. And if there's no meaning, there's no feeling. Try your best to catch yourself in that moment where you're actually going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to have no work in the future. The kids are going to be broke. Then I'm going to have to leave the house. I'm going to lose the house. Then I'm going to be in the ditch. Then I'm going to be dead. Then I'm going to die. And I'll have to move to babe. It's just to get into the habit of thinking, is this story adding value to my life? Is it making me feel better now? Is it part of the problem, or is it part of the solution to the story? Could I just stop telling it? And it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy because it's so familiar for you to keep doing that because you've rehearsed it so much. But you have to get to the point where it's unfamiliar. And are you seeing the problem as a full picture? Like, are you making pictures in your head? Are you just telling the story like and you're putting a bad ending on it? Are you the type of guy that's sitting there and you've got big pictures in your head of everything going wrong? You've even got pictures in your head of who's there laughing at you and saying, look, I knew it. I knew you were going to fail. You thought you were great, didn't you? I'm glad. You know, there's going to be a lot of people there that are going to be glad when they see me fail, and, you know, and I can see their faces, and, you know, I can see my family crying, and, you know, I've let them down. Are you that type of guy? I'm going to ask you to just take an idea that what if you could lessen that to the point where you realize that you're feeling better. And then you start to realize, hang on, I think I'll listen to this other podcast that Paul has, or maybe I'll listen to this one again, or maybe I'll listen to that second one because there was some stuff in that made sense, and they all kind of connected, and they all intertwined with each other, and they were kind of like a puzzle. And the second podcast that he done, that made more sense to me because I done the third one, and the third one had a lot of stuff in it. And you know what? As time went on, I got more experience, and I started to notice I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better. This story thing's actually working really well. And then you listen to the first podcast, and that makes even more sense because now the stuff that you've learned now in your life is influencing everything that you've already learned. So it's like you're listening to it again for the first time. And I'm not trying to get you to listen to all my podcasts all the time, but it is a good upsell, isn't it? If I wanted to sell it, I'm not, as an American friend of mine says, I'm not selling you, I'm telling you. If you do this, it's going to take the pressure off. And it's going to take the pressure off you having to think, how am I going to cope? It's taking the effort out of it. You know, it's like the burning house and you're feeling trapped, and that negative feeling's like you're in this burning house. And the choice you have is you can open the door and you can go out, or you can stay stuck. You can stay in the house. I'm the guide. I've got the mask and the oxygen, and I'm leading you out. And I'm trying to get you outside the door onto the other side of all of this, where you can be outside the fire, look in, and then you can start to try and make sense out of what the fuck just happened there. You know? So it feels like when you're in this part of your life where you're in the fire and you can't get out because you can't see your way out, and I'm going to be the guide that's going to hold your hand, and I've got the oxygen mask on, and I'm saying it's all going to be okay. And I can tell you that because the only way that it can change in a negative way for you is if you start telling shit stories again. You know, I'm going to be telling you positive stories and I'm going to be getting you to imagine a positive outcome, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. How could I? But all I can tell you is mine's going to be way better than yours. I'm going to feel better between now and whatever that time is, whether it's something in your mind where you're going to thinking about, I'm going to pay off my mortgage. When I get there, then I can be happy. But listen to this. This is where you're going to pay your mortgage off. This is where you are. And if you say, I'll be happy when I pay my mortgage off, automatically means I'm not happy now. Now, if you practice not being happy now and 20 or 10 years go by, however much you have left on your mortgage, by the time you get to pay your mortgage off, what do you think you're going to be good at when you get to pay your mortgage off? Are you going to, if you practice being stressed and waiting to be happy, do you think you're going to get good at being happy, or do you think you're going to get better at waiting to be happy? I can tell you this. You're going to get better at waiting to be happy, because when you get there, most people are usually sick and they have to sell their house to pay for their medical expenses. A lot of people, by the time they get there, they start like feeling like they need to get divorced. They feel like, I thought this was going to feel better. I paid the mortgage off, but I feel empty. I feel like let down. I feel like this sense of just like something's been taken away from me, and I should feel better. And a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, there is a lot of people that practice being happy, and when they get to retirement, but the amount of stress that's on people's lives at the moment, and the amount of unrealistic expectations that's on men, it's different now. It's changed, and it's not in a good way. So my idea is an approach to life that works for people who are successfully happy. And I've studied a lot of people that are successfully happy. Lucky enough, I didn't just read them in a book or watch them. I got to get inside their heads, and I got to find out what makes them happy and what makes them sad. What makes the person happy and has nothing, and what makes the person sad that has everything. What are they doing in their mind? What's their approach to life? What's their outlook in life? And it's pretty simple. You know, people that are unhappy always say, I'll be happy when. And people that don't worry, the simple thing I can tell you about people that don't worry is they always say, if that happens, I'll deal with it then. They never worry about anything. They don't go, oh my God, what am I going to do? And they don't try and ask what if and why. That's not what they're doing. They're usually approaching it like this. What about that thing that's coming up? That happens, I'll deal with it then. And they deal with things from moment to moment. They never step outside the present moment. They only deal with things that's beyond the tip of their nose, and tend to it in real time without judgment. And if you try and put something of the future in there, they'll go, oh no, don't, that's not now. I'll deal with that then. That's life. They're not making up at it, and they're actually living in reality. But people are so used to planning their life, planning to be happy. When I get married, then I can be happy. When I get the house, then I can be happy. When I have kids, then I can be happy. And when I retire, then I can be happy. And then they look back and go, oh man, I wish I could go back. So it's not waiting to be happy. So let's say you've got your mortgage and you have to pay it off, and you've got so many years. My goal here is to get you to be able to not wait to be happy. It's like, I'll be happy when I pay off my mortgage. And I'm like, why wait? Who says you have to wait? Who says? I'd like to find a person who says that you have to do that. Now, if you bake your happiness into that outcome, there's nothing I can do about it. If you have it baked in and go, yeah, well, it's obvious, Paul, you know, I'm going to be able to be happy when I pay my mortgage. I'm not going to have any bills. I can use all that money to go on holidays. Yeah, if you've got your happiness baked into that moment, this podcast is not for you. I'm saying that when you pay it off, you can still be happy, but why wait? Don't put it out there. It comes from you, not outside of you. You can put meaning into anything that you want, and you can make anything you want mean anything you want. It's just less tormenting, and the quality of life between now and then can slow down, and you can enjoy the quantity and the quality of life instead of just waiting all of the time. Because I don't know many people who have successfully waited to be happy and found it, because they're only good at waiting. It's always somewhere else. As soon as they get there, they go, oh no, you've got the house paid off now. Now you need to do this other thing. But they can't, they just don't feel like they want to do anything because they're so unhappy. They've practiced being unhappy. So don't try not to be that person, and be open to having a choice. And remember, I'm not taking anything away here. I'm just adding more choices. And the more choices you have, the less excuses you have to feel bad. And to get you to come out the other side of this, if you know that you'll be okay, you'll feel better. But you can't really know anything. So if you have a story and your story is, I'm going to be okay in the future, you'll feel better. But if you think you're not going to be okay, you're going to feel bad. So the story that I have about the future is, one is I don't know, and I like not knowing, because that's where new and different comes from. So not knowing for me means novelty and adventure, right? But for most people who say, what's it like not knowing? They're like, I need to know. But we're designed to live in uncertainty, because that's where we evolve. To look forward to not knowing, to the wisdom of the unknown, to find those things that we haven't done yet that will fulfill us and make us feel like we're growing and changing. The people that know all the time, they never really change, and they become unhappy because there's no novelty and adventure in their life. So for me, uncertainty means novelty. It means adventure. It means new and different. It means change. So mine's better. I don't know what your one is, but I'm keeping that one. And you, no matter how much money you put on uncertainty as fear, I'm not buying it. Could if I wanted. I have a choice now. But I've got all these other choices, and mine, from experience of using it, is way better than most people. That's why people come to me and ask me to help them to change how they feel, because they can see that I'm there. I have the strategy. I know how to get them from where they are to where they want to be. I have the tools and the experience. They have the problem, and I don't have the problem, because I know how to not do their problem. And I help them to not do the problem and get them out the other side. And then I show them what I did and how to stay there. So my description of reality is just my opinion and my description. It's a tool that I use to stir up feelings, to influence people, and to influence myself in a positive way for a positive outcome. And I always think to not assume the worst case scenario. You can't really know anything. I don't know how the future ends, but my story about the future is always going to be a positive one, and I adjust it accordingly. I still allow for uncertainty and possibility. Like, I'm not stupid. I'm not just going, it's going to be okay. I'm not looking out the window in the garden and going, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. If I do that, then the weeds are going to take over the garden. I'm looking out the garden going, there's weeds, and I get out there and I pull them up. So why not just not assume anything and assume the best and still tend to what's in front of you? So if there's weeds in the garden, you pull them out. But if you're in a better mood, you're going to pull the weeds out of the garden. If I wake up in the morning with a shitty picture of the future in my mind, with a horrible story of how it's going to be, how it's going to end, and how it's going to be bad, I'll get up in the morning and I'll look out the window and go, I'm going back to bed. I'm not in the mood. I'm going to put myself into a terrible mood with this terrible story and terrible pictures about the future. And I don't really, I do care, but whether you think that story is true or not, you have to ask yourself, is it helping me to get myself into a better mood? Is it helping me to add value to my life? How can I change the story so that I can make better decisions and move forward with my life, So why not choose to be okay in the future? And if someone asks you, do the old Irish thing, say, I'll be grand. Everything's going to be fine. And do it to the point where you get so good at faking it that you'll believe it. So fake it till you become it. Isn't Mick Jagger say that? I faked the person I wanted to be, and then that person became me. It's not fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it, and just make it so real. You're breaking the cycle here of negative projections about the future. And people punish themselves by imagining a bad future. We assume that when we're suffering and that we deserve to suffer. Why assume suffering when the future isn't written yet? It hasn't opened up yet. It hasn't happened. You're just learning in these podcasts, just shift your focus to what's real in the moment and pay attention to what's important in your life. And just to be quiet in your mind, to not feel the need to put a good ending or a bad ending on it. But if you really want to motivate yourself, you know what? I'm going to create this positive interpretation of the future where if someone looks at me from across the room, they're going to think I'm fucking nuts. They'd be like, what's that person smiling about? And if I knew you, I would say, well, they're just over there and they're making some positive pictures in their head about the future. And they're imagining things going absolutely amazing. And if they asked me, was it true? I'd say, how could it be? Nobody knows. But I tell you what, I want to be that guy because he's going to be very helpful. In fact, I'm going to go over there and ask him to help me with this other thing because he's going to be in the best possible state to be able to help me with it. And if he keeps practicing being like that, it's not going to matter what problems come up in the future for that guy because he's going to be able to tend to it because he's going to be in a really resourceful state. And the other guy's over there making bad pictures in his head about what he should have, would have, could have done, making big bad pictures about how he's going to be broke in the future and the kids are going to be on the street and they're going to be very disappointed in him. I'm not going to ask that guy for help because he just doesn't look like he's in the right state to even help himself. And God help him when he goes to tend to his own problems in the future because he's not going to be able to see clearly. He's not going to be able to make better decisions. I'm asking you just to consider these choices. So I'm not telling you to do something different. What I am saying is I'm creating more choices. And the more choices you have, the more freedom you have to choose whether you want to do it this way or continue to do it the way you were doing it. And it's always nice to have choices, isn't it? I like to create more choices instead of taking some away. So you can decide whether you want to make positive pictures in your mind and you can decide to make negative pictures in your mind. Either way, they're just stories and they're just pictures because nobody can really predict what the future is. It's only now, in this moment, I can tell you what's happening. But what's going to happen tomorrow? I'll deal with that when I get there. I don't know. And either do you. You don't have whatever you think about tomorrow or next week, the evidence that you need to make a decision about that future moment is not available to you now. It's only available when you get there, but you're acting like it's available to you now and you're overwhelming yourself with all of these possibilities that usually never happen. And usually you'll find out that you're okay anyway, you know? So I hope this helps. And if you want to join my community, I'm setting up a community for men over 40 that are struggling with emotional burnout and want to just enhance their quality of life and their career satisfaction. And I've also created a podcast on Spotify and iTunes if you want to subscribe to them, or you just want to follow me on YouTube and leave some comments and let me know if you want to make these podcasts longer, shorter, if you like them, if you don't like them. If there's certain things that you want me to talk about, maybe even, talk to a real person. I can do a live with a real person and start to help them with an issue that they're struggling with so that you can see how easy it is for you to just turn your mind around and change how you think and feel about something that's happening outside and feel better inside despite what's happening outside. If we want to do that, we can do that. So subscribe to my channel. The channel's called Paul Campbell, the podcast. And it's on YouTube, and you can see the link in the description down below. And you can join the community as well. I'm going to set up a community for men over 40 who are struggling with emotional burnout. If you're not over 40 and you're enjoying these podcasts, that's great. Keep watching them. And thank you very much for watching. I'm Paul Campbell, and I'll see you in the next podcast.